Hey everybody, I am Tracy Brunt Riches, and this is meeting 3 of the application process for Limestone Charter Association. And tonight we're going to talk about goals, objectives, and evaluating pupil performance. There's a lot to this. This is a huge portion of your application. And so I encourage you to watch this video and then feel free to reach out to me with more specific questions, because most of this is going to be kind of in general. All righty, let me see if I can get my, I might have to stop the share here and get, there it goes, there it goes, there it goes. So first off, what I want to do is talk about understanding setting your goals. Means that, like we've talked about in the other ones, you really have to know what's going on in the area around you. You need to know what the testing is, what the demographics are, what the socioeconomic status is of all the people that live around you that may bring children to your school. And the first thing you want to do is start looking at the report cards of those schools that you would be pulling kids from, so you have an idea of the level of the children of who you're going to be bringing. So before you set any goals, you really have to know about your population or your potential population when you're writing this application, right? So 2 ways to get started there in going to the State Department's website. And I put them on here, so please feel free to refer back to this. You can follow the first step and it just takes you to the general page, or you can skip that and bookmark the report cards page. Oh, and goodness gracious. And what's happened to me here? Let me go right here. There we go. There we go. And this is, we'll go to the first one, but I cut and pasted that one. So if you go down to report cards, and I put some screenshots in this presentation for you too. It's an external link. So you see where it says screportcard.ed.sc.gov. This is where you'll find all the report cards for all the schools in the state of South Carolina, whether they are public schools, well, they're all public schools, but whether they're traditional schools or whether they're charter schools, or whether even that they are schools that are special schools in the legislative budget. But what you're really trying to look for is that school that's down the road from you, if you're wanting to put your school in a community, or if you're trying to draw from a whole district or 2 or 3 districts because you live in a county that's got lots of districts, say like Spartanburg that has 7, then you're going to need to look at all 7 report cards. Plus, if you're sitting on the boundaries, because you will have no district boundaries at all. You can take kids, so long as they're in the state, you only have state boundary, but you don't have any district boundaries. You need to be looking at those districts that are right next door to the district that you want to put your school in, and that may not be in the same county. So there's several ways to do this. This is really important for you to spend lots of time doing. We've talked about this before, but just quickly, to view a report card, you get to this page, view report card, and pick your school. So let's say you want to do an elementary school, you pick that. This is 2021. You may want to look at pre-COVID so that you can see if there's any differences there. You will see the state average went down from that, and you probably see that for schools as well. So if you want to use 19 in your data, feel free to do that as opposed to 21. But my suggestion would be that you reference both. You're going to pick a district, and we'll pick the charter school district. Well, actually, let's pick a local district. How about that? Let's pick, I live in Richland. So I live in Richland too. So we'll just pick where Richland 2, you go down the list here, pick Richland 2, and the school down the street from me is Pontiac. Okay, so I'm just going to pick that one because it's close to me. I'm going to view the report card here. It's going to give me a narrative that I need to read to find out what kind of things they offer. That's very important. You're going to find that information hopefully right here in the narrative. Depends, the school writes it, so it depends on what the school wrote. And then I'm going to go down here and look at the academics of that school. So if I look at the academic achievement, we're talking about elementary, so we're doing SC ready. You can see there's a disclaimer here about the testing situation due to COVID, right? And we're looking at this school, and they, at this one, had a 35.7% passage rate on SC Ready English Language Arts. That means it is telling you right here that 80 out of the 224 that took it had a meets or exceeds in. And then you can hit the details if you would like to look at that. And it gives you a little bit more detail in that it gets, if you click on it right there, it tells you how many made an A, B, or you have what their percentages were. That's important, but mostly the page that I think you'll find the most that's easiest to use would just be this first page here. Unless you're doing a targeted population, and then that gets a little different, okay? So we see it tells us the district, so that's Richland 2, and the state, and that is all public schools, because as you see the numbers here, that should give you an idea of what the average was. So as you see, the state's average was only 42% was meets or exceeds. That's not a good number, is it? That's definitely not. So we have math, same situation. They were 38. The district was a 33. So they were above their district and just barely above the state. This is important information, right? Let me go back now. Let's keep looking. We went from academics. Let's go back to the overview. Let's look at preparing for success. Right, so now we're looking at science or social studies, depending on the year. Kindergarten readiness assessments. First and second grade students on track for success in ELA and math. This is valuable information. I expect to see that you're using that when setting your goals, because much of your goals is comparing yourself to the traditional school to where you're pulling from. And you are certainly welcome to give us that kind of information in the goal, or you can just write that in your narrative. We're going to talk a lot about what the goals should kind of look like. So I take the time to do this just to show you how important that information is and what you should be looking at. Now, one thing I want to be clear about, let's look at another one. And we'll use Richland too, because I want to look at high school. So you see a little differences here. And I'm going to use Richland too, just because that's where I live. Richland, no shoot, you let go of it. Sometimes it's a little tricky. Richland too. And my child would be going if she went to a school in Spring Valley. And again, it looks similar right here on the front page, but if you look at the academics, sorry. Turn that off. Oh, Todd's texting me saying you're not seeing my screen. Wonder why that is. Just seeing the first page you put up. Okay. Oh, I get it. See, thank you so much, Todd. Now we're going to have to do a little bit more work going back to that, aren't we? I'm super sorry. I thought you could see what I went to from the PowerPoint, but apparently you can't. So let me back up just for a second here and share my screen again. Continue here. And since it did not take you to the next thing, I think that is one of the downsides of Zoom. Now you should be able to see the page. So I'm going to start back to where we were there just to make sure we know what we're doing here. When we go to the state website, we hit report cards. And now we want to view the report card. We go up there, we pick 21 or 19 if you want to. All right, now let me pick high school. And I'm going to pick Richland 2 and Spring Valley, which would be the closest high school to me. And Spring Valley. Okay, Spring Valley is a big, huge school. What we're going to look at here is, as you should be looking for your research, your academic achievement is going to look at English and math, EOC scores, end of course exams, right? So when I look at this school, they did pretty well in English. They've got a 73, and the district had a 65, and the state has a 63. So as you see here, this Spring Valley did pretty well. They did 10 points better than the state. So if I was starting a charter school in this area, I really need to know how the local school is doing in English. Algebra, again, they did much better than the state. The state's at a 46, and they're at a 62, right? Now, we go back after academics, we want to look at preparing for success. This is science and American history, US history and Constitution, right? Again, in school for biology, they made a 65 where the state was a 50. And in US history though, wow, they had a 23 where the state was 37. So US history is always the lowest one, but still 23 is not good. That means only 22, you notice here, if you can see this, it tells you how many kids passed the test, how many kids took the test. You can go into details. Sorry, I missed that on the other ones, but the report cards are pretty much the same. It's just that elementary has SC Ready, and the high school has end of course tests, right? It tells you how many made an A, how many made a B, all the way down. It gives you more details. So I want to make sure that you're clear when I tell you this, why this is important is the comparisons in your goals. You will have to have some that are testing based, and you do need to be pulling this information. If you have a target population, that's a little different. And the best thing to do for that is do the downloadable research. So if I go back here, let me show you locator. If you do that downloadable data here, we'll just take 2021. Now it'll take you to this screen. All right, this here you can look at graduation rates, and it'll give you every single school in the state, and you can do a lot of filtering, but this gives you a lot more detailed information that's easy to transfer into the documentation that you're going to need to justify why you're doing what you're doing and why that goal is that goal. If you have problems with this or you're not really sure, just give me a call, send me an email, and I will help. I will get online with you and walk you through it individually. All right, so let me make sure here. Let me stop this share and go back to my PowerPoint there. And I'll have to remember that I have to do that every time. Okay. All right, now. All right, let's see here. Okay, so here I've just gone through that, what I just went through, but this PowerPoint will be up there for you to see some step-by-steps to get you to that. Okay, we're writing our goals, right? We've decided that we kind of know what we want our program to be. We've been working through that. We've been researching it, and we're writing. And now we're going to write some goals. And these goals are going to be important in the application process for the readers to see that you are saying this program is going to be a success and it's going to take the kids where, okay? But goals are outputs. They are not inputs. So they are not what you are offering or what you're going to give kids and what kind of programs you're doing. They are the outputs of the kids. What are the kids achieving? Some of these might be academic and some of them might not be. But please don't write your goals to say our goal is to provide every student yada, yada, yada. That's not a goal. Okay, so when you're writing your goals, what is the purpose of your school? Before you write the goals, you must understand the population you expect to serve. I've said this numerous times, right? when you write this, you're going to write this charter based on the expectation of the kids you think you're going to serve. If you're marketing right, then that's who you're going to get, but it's not going to be 100%. You're going to get who you get, and whoever gets in your lottery gets in your school. So, but you're writing based on a population you expect to serve, whether that's community or targeted. Once you understand the population, then decide on the educational program. What's the purpose of the school in relation to what you're trying to achieve? Your goal should demonstrate your purpose by stating the academic, behavioral, and or extracurricular achievements. So as the reader, will the reader of your narrative on the SC report card be able to see the correlation between your student data and the purpose of your school? So, you know, a minute ago, I told you that you can go up in the narrative and read about the school, and it will tell you about the programs. And so when you go, and every summer you will write your narrative for the report card, you'll write your narrative and you'll talk about the theme of your school, why you have this charter school. And when they look at what you're providing and they look at your testing, they need to be able to see that there was a correlation that took you to that. That this is harder than it looks. And I want you to really think through this. So understanding the purpose of your school. All right, considerations for goal setting. How are students performing at nearby schools? How are students performing statewide, all of which you can get online, I just showed you. How will your expected student population differ from nearby schools statewide? Will there be a difference? You have to figure that out. What are you trying to achieve eventually? Now, and that's meaning, are you expecting to exceed the state average? You want to be in the top 5, 20% of schools in the state. If that's one of your goals, then you can certainly write that in there, but don't write it in the first year. You're going to write your goals from year 1 to year 10 for your application. Might those change somewhere down the road? Of course. They're probably going to. That's okay. We'll talk about amendments later. But right now, you're writing those goals based on what you think this program can achieve. All right, your first year's goals. And let me say this, I want to make this disclaimer over and over and over again. I am doing this for Limestone Charter Association only. My suggestion to you is to make sure you attend. If you choose to submit to other authorizers, that you make sure you understand their expectations. My expectations as the main reader and of the process for this year for Limestone is what I'm presenting and only what I'm presenting. So I'm only speaking for Limestone. But the first year's goals, when you write in your charter, should really just be benchmarks. And starting in year 2, the charter, you have to have goals for each year. Now, those goals can build on each other, or they don't have to. They can jump from year to year. So in year 2, this is what's going to happen. In year 5, this is what's going to happen, because it takes 3 years to do whatever your program's doing. The charter must contain academic achievement, either through testing percentages or through growth based on individual students over multiple years. Growth is much easier to measure in elementary schools than it is in high schools, because when you're looking at growth and they're taking the same subjects every year and they're taking the state test every year, or you're giving them a formative assessment every year and it's the same thing, it's measuring the same thing, that growth is really easy to see. When you get to high school, it's a whole different deal, right? Because that's not how testing works. We're testing very specific subjects, but only at certain points, not every single year for each student every year they take that course. We don't test for English 1, 2, 3, and 4. We test for right now, we're going to English 2. It used to be English 1. Algebra 1, not Algebra 2 or geometry or statistics or anything else. So that's much harder when you're doing high school to look at growth. If you want to do growth, that's great. What gets a little harder about that is that in order to really keep that going, you have to have the same student over and over and over again per year. However, that's really what you're trying to do, is show how this kid, this one kid, has gone from here to here. So you're measuring growth. If you're doing testing percentages, then you're measuring the fourth grade. And then the next time you measure fourth grade, it's a whole different set of kids. So you're measuring testing for that particular year. So you need to decide, you can do both, but you need to be clear on what you're measuring in your goal. But you can do both if you want to, and I would absolutely suggest you do both, particularly if you're doing elementary. Okay, so in your goals that you're working on, as I said, you've got to show academic and behavioral and any other things that you've got going on. But while your goals, you know, you're only going to do maybe 5-6 goals all in total, and they're going to span these 10 years. Your authorizer, no matter who you go to, is going to have a performance framework. And so that performance framework that they're going to be looking at your academics, your operational performance every single year, just to see if you're on track, making sure everything's good. And that has a twofold effect. One, it's to actually look at your achievement and your academic performance for kids, because you said you were going to make kids better, right? Or you wouldn't be doing this school. And whatever it is that you're trying to make them better in, not just necessarily testing. So that's the first thing they're going to do it for. And then the second thing is that performance framework should help you kind of look at where you are and think, maybe we need to rethink some of our goals, or, you know, this program didn't work out so great, so maybe we need to do an amendment to our charter and go a little different direction. That's what this framework helps you do. Okay. Oh, wait. So some people are now trying to get in, and I'm learning that. So let me pause here for a second and go back. Let me pause sharing. Let me stop sharing, and then let me pause recording.